Today, I really want to talk about office politics. You know something that nobody ever teaches you when you start riding a motorcycle? Well, you're actually taught how to brake, how to use the clutch, how to take a corner, and look, well, that part that just happened where I had to maneuver and move away from that car, that is something that probably is not taught to a lot of us. So we're never taught about how to deal with people who don't follow traffic rules, just like the car that just came by. This is not my first ride, so I know how to avoid people driving or riding without any sense. So there are people on the road who cut you off, like the one that happened, that a truck that deliberately blocks your fast lane, the vehicle that rides in your blind spot on purpose so that you can't overtake, right? All this happens. You must be thinking, where am I going? Where am I drifting? But I'm sure that thing sounds familiar on the road. Because, you know, I've seen the exact same traffic every single day inside corporate offices for the last 25 plus years. Today, I really want to talk about office politics. And you know, before anyone comments, hey look, there's nothing like office politics, just do your good work and nothing will affect you. Trust me, that is the most dangerous thing a rider can believe. You know, you might think I'm a good rider, other people's bad driving won't affect you or affect me, whatever it is. But you know what? Accidents actually happen to good riders because of bad riders. And you know what? Careers in corporate stall not because of bad performance, because of bad politics around good people. Now today I'm not going to tell you to play dirty politics. I'm going to tell you how to ride smart, both in the corporate and in bad traffic. For some reason, everybody thinks politics is dirty, politics is bad. But trust me, boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen, if you really want to grow in an organization, you need to understand how to play politics. Now, before I dive into what politics is all about and how riding on the road has some similarities in corporate life, let's first try and define what politics is. Politics is the use of informal influence or relationships or perceptions and power dynamics within a workplace to achieve your goals, protect your interests, gain visibility, and influence in decision making. Notice what I didn't say. I didn't say manipulation. I didn't say backstabbing. I said influence. I said relationship building. I said perception development. Politics is not just a workplace phenomenon. You know what? It exists in your schools, in your colleges, in families. You see, wherever there are people who are competing for limited resources, politics naturally emerges. In corporations, those limited resources are promotions, budgets, project ownership, leadership visibility, and access to decision makers. Because they are scarce, there's limited opportunities, people resort to politics. So just think about it for a minute, guys and girls. When you were in school, politics happens out there as well. How many of you recollect when a class teacher wants you to share an important information, let's say about the exam? You know, you may hear it, but you don't go and tell your friend who's absent on that day because you don't want him, her to excel, because you want to be scoring better marks than that individual. Now, don't you think that's politics? It is politics, guys. But at that stage, when we are so young and naive, we don't think that as politics. Now, the first time where I and my friend had to play intentional politics. Now, we were conducting a countrywide management program where colleges, where students from different colleges would come by, and then we have I think it was almost a 3 or 4 days in-house competition around various business topics, right? Now, me and my friend who started this initiative, we were actually apprehensive that there could be people who may want to sabotage this, because you got students unions, you've got some people who wouldn't like these kind of things to happen. Those. So me and my friend said, how do we avoid this? And that's when we thought of. So we had an organizing committee. So we formed an organizing committee. So we then nominated one of the students as the president of our committee, who was extremely influential with different student wings and student groups, and very, very powerful as well. And you see, the reason why me and my friend did that was to ensure that we could actually conduct our management meet successfully without any hurdles and issues. Now, pause there for a minute. Was that politics? Of course it was politics. But did we backstab anybody? Did we manipulate anybody? Did we deceive anybody? Not at all. All that we wanted was the management meet to be successful. And for that, we played this trick. And people would probably label it as politics. But so be it. We played politics for the greater good of the management meet. In schools, we're always told, hey, listen, just put your head down and work. Your marks will speak for yourself. And that's so true, right? I mean, in schools, that's exactly what you're taught. And a lot of us, for some reason, carry that into the workplace, thinking that you just need to put your head down and work and everything else will take care. But it doesn't work that way in corporates. And that is probably the reason why a mediocre performer who understands the rules of the game in a corporate gets promoted, while a highly skilled, deeply competent professional probably stays where he or she has always been. I mean, they don't get any promotions. Because competence will get you into the room, but influence determines how far you go inside the room. Now, let me slow down a bit, because this is where the distinction is very, very important. Look, I mean, there are two kinds of politics in every office. And the reason most smart people avoid all of it is because they've only ever seen the toxic kind only. So they think that's a toxic thing is a politics. But, you also have healthy politics. And to me, healthy politics is building genuine networks and alliances across different functions. You're trying to influence decisions, obviously, ethically and morally, through logic, through data, through credibility. And there's nothing wrong in it. And then stakeholder management is another element of healthy politics, knowing who matters and why. Then you have strategic collaborations, helping others win so they help you. I mean, there's nothing wrong in it. Communicating your value with intention and clarity. All these are examples of healthy politics. This is the playbook of every senior leader that I have worked or admired with. Every CEO who built a coalition, every CFO who got budget approvals for their team, every HR who shifted culture, they were all playing healthy politics. Now, you might ask, what is toxic politics? To me, toxic politics are gossip and destructive small talk, that poisons the team. Manipulation without holding information to control outcomes. You manipulate data. Credit theft, taking ownership of somebody else's work. Deliberately sabotage your friend or a colleague. Favoritism that rewards loyalty over merit. Now, these are all toxic politics, and if you want to progress in an organization, you really need to understand how to play positive politics. See, the goal is not to become political. The goal is to become politically aware and to practice healthy politics deliberately. Let me try and build the parallel on the road. See, there are three kinds of riders of traffic that I see on the road very, very clearly. And similarly, I think every office has its exact equivalent. Now, the first kind of people on the road are the ones who follow the rules. They signal, they yield, they cooperate. Your best colleagues or your trusted managers or your straightforward peers, these are some examples, and you love working next to these people. So that's the first set. The second set are the ones who break rules out of ignorance or carelessness. I mean, they don't do it purposefully, but it just happens. They cut you off, not because they saw you and they didn't care, but because they didn't see you at all. There's no malicious intent out there. They're just not paying attention. Now, the third kind is the one that breaks all the rules deliberately. They know exactly where you are, and they don't care, to be honest. Or worse, they could be they actively don't want you to get ahead. Now, office politics is not about navigating just the first two groups. I think most of us can handle the first two set of groups, but office politics becomes extremely important and becomes a survival tool when you're surrounded by the third kind of traffic of people in the office. And how do you deal with them? How do you deal with this sort of stuff? So I want to kind of correlate this with 5 rules of riding that I think every rider demonstrates, or a good rider demonstrates on the road, and I want to build a parallel to that in a corporate. Now, so here are the 5 rules. And these rules apply not just for the road, but also in your boardroom, in your office. This won't make you a politician, but they make you someone who can't be stopped by anyone. Okay, so the first rule of riding is situational awareness. As the word suggests, you need to be aware of the situation. A rider on the road needs to have situational awareness. For example, I'm riding on the road right now. I need to know what's on my left, on my right. Look at my rear view mirror. Who's coming? Who's trying to, kind of run me down? Because when you're on the road, you really have to think that everybody on the road is actually there to kill you. Because that is how you got to be prepared. That's being prepared for the worst. So just like on the road, you've got to scan your surroundings, your environment, everything around you that's happening, because and that's the only way you can ride safely. Similarly, in an office, you can't be ignorant of things that's happening in the office. You need to understand who's the one who influences decisions, who's the one who's actually working on projects that's going to take the organization forward. You got to understand which colleague is trying to get unfair advantage by connecting with the VP, which colleague is meeting the HR secretly. I mean, the reason why I'm telling you need to be aware of the situation around you. You need to know what is the information. And I'm not saying get into gossip, but understand what the grapevine is all about. What are people talking about? Because of situational politics, I have seen some people who pivot from their current role and picked up a new role only to realize that their old role was made redundant, laid off. That particular role got impacted. Now look, this individual who actually was aware of the situation, read what is happening, he or she realized where the next move should be, because he or she was connected with people who was giving him or her the information, and then he or she made a very smart move, as I said, to pivot into a different role. Now, situational awareness is key if you want to survive. Similarly, situational awareness on a road is a matter of life and death, guys. Rule 2 is ride your own lane. I mean, don't get pulled into their race. You know what beginner riders do when someone suddenly cuts them off aggressively on a highway like this? They start chasing them because they want justice. They want to show that, you can't just cut me off and overtake me. I'm a better rider. So they start racing, which probably is dangerous. Just because somebody is cut off, it's hit your ego, and now you're becoming careless. And you know what advanced riders do? They adjust. They create space. They stay in their line. Because chasing an aggressive driver means, or a rider means, you made their problem your problem. And 2 aggressive people in traffic, someone is definitely going to get hurt. Usually the one who followed. Now, office politics works identically. See, when someone undermines you in a meeting, the instinct is immediately to fire back, to retaliate, to send a strong worded email, probably at the middle of the night. Your emotions are running high. And trust me, I have seen people whose careers got destroyed because of being so impulsive. Just because somebody's undermined you in a meeting does not mean you got to go after them. And because it's egos at stake, you do things which are stupid. And the moment you do something stupid, it is your image, it's your perception, it's your credibility that's on the line. And people then make perceptions about you saying, hang on, this individual doesn't sound logical. He or she is not balanced. Right? And that perception is so dangerous for you to grow in a corporate career. So guys and girls, do not get ego into the corporates like the way people get it on the road, because it's dangerous. You get sucked into it, and then it becomes very difficult for you to stop. But people who are watching would know that you are the one who started that whole debate or discussion or that conflict, and they would label you as somebody, or they would say he or she is playing dirty politics, and that image is not at all good for you. So please stay in your lane. Let the others burn their own tires. The rule number 3 is visibility. You got to be seen. See, now here's a riding principle we all riders follow, and every instructor probably teaches you on day 1 that you got to assume that you're invisible, right, to be seen, right? Because so visibility is that when you're riding on a road, you've got to be visible to people. You've got to, especially when you're riding in the night, is to wear attire which has got these reflective radium strips. Your helmet has got radium strips. You've got proper lights on your bike. Your lights are pretty powerful, so that you're visible. People know that there is somebody on the road out there, right? And you're actually telling everybody that, look, I am riding, so so watch out for me, look out for me, or rather be careful, or whatever it is. You got to be visible when you're riding on a motorcycle. Now apply the same to your career. See, if people who are making decisions don't know even your name, they don't know what you're building, they probably don't see your contributions, you're riding in a blind spot. Blind spots get sideswiped. So what is the trick of the game out here is you've got to build connections, you've got to build bridges, you've got to be visible. And if you've not seen my earlier video where I talk about perception building, please do take a look. How do you build a strong brand and a perception for yourself? Because your visibility matters more than anything else. People will come to you with problems. People will come to you with projects, which in turn makes you a stronger individual. Said you're going to be visible because of the good work you're doing, the stakeholder connections that you're building, the bridges you're building, not by playing toxic politics. Visibility is not about bragging. Visibility is professional communication. You're working on a project, send the project summary email to your skip level, copying your manager, speak in town halls. Even if that's one good question, ask it. You got to volunteer for cross-functional initiatives that connects you to new stakeholders. Frame your work in business outcomes, not necessarily saying I've completed this task. Quantify what is the outcome of the work that you're doing. And many of you are thinking, I'm an introvert. That doesn't come to me naturally. And I hear you. But here's the reality. Silence is expensive in corporate life. I'm going to say this, silence is expensive in a corporate life. If nobody knows your contributions, you are depending entirely on luck. And that's not a career strategy at all. Rule 4, build a convoy of allies, somebody who can speak for you when you're not in that meeting room. One of the most powerful things about group riding is that when you are in a trusted convoy, someone is always watching a direction you're not watching. You would have seen people doing signals, warning you about potholes in front of you. They ask you to slow because there's a speed breaker. So in a group ride, there are people watching your back. So hence, the road becomes significantly safer because you're not navigating the whole thing alone. In an office, your convoy is your network, your sponsors, your allies. I'm not talking about psychophancy, not talking about yes men, but people who genuinely know your work. They respect you and they will speak for you when you're not in the room. Because here is the truth about office politics that nobody says it out very loud. The decisions that affect your career are almost never ever made when you're present. They are made in conversations that you're not in. If no one in that room is part of your convoy, then who's going to speak for you? You got to build your allies. And here is the advanced skill within this. It's called stakeholder intelligence. You see, different stakeholders care about fundamentally different things. Okay? Now, a finance probably would care for cost efficiency and risk. So work on that domain, build that connection with them. Operation would care about speed and reliability, so do things that supports operations. Leadership cares about strategic differentiation and competitive impact. Your direct manager cares about delivery, team health, and not getting surprised with unwanted things. So if you communicate the same way to all of them, you will influence none of them. So you got to speak to all of them in their language and show them how you're supporting them in their journey. And that is what is going to help you build your allies and going to build your convoy. And there will be people in that room who will speak for you when you are not there. Political intelligence is the ability to ask what matters most to this specific person and then speak their language. Rule 5, know when to exit bad roads. I'm sure it's quite self-explanatory what I mean by that. See, this last one is the hardest because it requires you to admit something. There are roads that are simply too broken and very difficult to ride. Potholes everywhere, no markings, there are people coming the wrong direction, no lighting, nothing. An experienced rider looks at that road and says, hey, this isn't worth it. I'm taking a detour. Not because they can't ride, because they understand the risk. See, I've seen a lot of people working in organizations which has toxic culture, like the bad roads, potholes, driving in wrong direction, etc. And people are very optimistic. They hold on to their role for 3, 4, 5 years, hoping that things will change. And during that process, they're completely burnt out. Now look, this is just like that bad road that I'm talking about. They hope that the leadership would notice what's happening and they'll come to the rescue. They hope the culture would shift. But nothing of that sort is ever going to happen or happens. So some of the most talented professionals I know, they've lost their health, their confidence, and their sense of identity to organizations that were structurally broken. So if you are in any organization that consistently rewards psychophancy over merit, if ethical behavior is penalized, if political players are protected from the top, that's a broken road that you need to identify. Leaving that organization is the right thing to do, but understand leaving is not losing. Detours lead to destinations too. So keep that in mind. I mean, this is critical. Don't exit because of discomfort. You're going to exit because of damage. You got to know the difference between the two. There are certain roads, as I said, you've got to take detours. A toxic organization, you got to leave. See, I want to leave you all with a bonus rule. So the bonus rule is that most drivers or riders today, they have installed dash cams. You know why? Because when the proof matters, it helps them. Because when something goes wrong, you have everything recorded, so there's evidence. In a corporate environment, guys and girls, especially the ones which are politically charged, and even otherwise if it's not politically charged, I mean the wrong politics I'm talking about, in such organizations, ambiguity is a weapon of choice. You know, like, I never said that. That wasn't the agreed scope. I don't recall the decision. When did I ever say this to you? Documentation is dashcam. After every key meeting, send a concise summary of the decisions, the owners, and the timelines, and whatever the agreed actions are. Confirm verbal agreements in writing, even casually, just to confirm what we discussed, this is what it is, blah, blah stuff. For goal setting and performance reviews and escalations, get everything documented, written, and send it to your line manager. Because sometimes in an organization, strong documentation could decide whether you stay in that organization or you quit. See, documentation doesn't mean paranoia, it means professionalism. And in toxic environments, if you are in one, it is one of the strongest protections you have. And even if it's not a toxic environment, do it. Because it is practice, it is discipline. So, let me bring this entire conversation home now. See, you do not have to survive bad traffic by becoming the most aggressive rider on the road. You survive and lead by becoming the most aware, the most strategic, the most respected rider out there. By reading the road before you react, by staying in your line when others try to pull you off it, by making yourself visible, deliberately, intentionally, by building a convoy that watches directions you can't watch alone, by knowing when the road is worth riding and when it's time to find a better one, and by keeping your dash cams running always. Trust me, they help you a lot. Now, these are not political games, guys and girls. These are survival skills. And the most powerful truth I can leave you with after being in corporates for over 25 years, that in some of the most complex political organizations on the planet is this. In corporate life, the smartest rider is not the loudest one. It is the one who reaches the destination consistently without unnecessary collisions. I hope I've been able to debunk a bit of politics and why I think every one of you out there needs to understand the rules of the game. And as I said, it's not dirty politics, but we're going to play healthy politics. So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to bring this ride to an end. I shall catch you on the next one with more value. Until then, take good care of yourselves and if possible, someone else too. On that note, bye for now.